The grand hall of the Galactic Council gleamed with the light of 1,000 stars. Its crystal walls reached up into what seemed like infinity, each facet reflecting the faces of hundreds of alien species gathered for the annual Technology Summit. Among them stood a lone human figure, Dr. James Walker, his plain black suit making him look like a shadow among the colorful and exotic beings around him. "And now," announced the council speaker, their voice echoing through the chamber, "we shall hear Earth's latest scientific achievement." The pause before "scientific" drew quiet chuckles from the assembly. Walker walked to the center platform, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. His presentation device, a simple holographic projector, looked like a child's toy compared to the advanced technology surrounding him. The human cleared his throat, standing straight despite the towering aliens around him. "Earth has achieved stable seventh-dimensional physics," he said simply. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the chamber erupted in laughter. The crystalline luminars, beams of pure light and thought, sparkled with particular amusement, their bodies flickering with patterns that translated to mockery in their culture. "Perhaps," said first speaker Bright Crystal, their form pulsing with condescending light, "the humans do not understand what dimensions truly are. Maybe they confused it with their primitive space flight." More laughter followed. Walker remained still, his face calm as he pressed a button on his projector. Above him, complex equations filled the air, showing mathematical proofs that had taken Earth's best minds decades to develop. "We understand perfectly well," Walker continued, his voice steady. "Your civilization has mastered fifth-dimensional travel. Impressive, yes, but limited. We found a way to go beyond." A tall, tentacled being moved forward. "Young species often make this mistake," it said kindly, as if speaking to a child. "You cannot simply skip dimensions. We tried for 10,000 years to master the 6th dimension. It cannot be done." Walker smiled slightly. "Cannot. Or you just haven't figured out how." The luminar's light dimmed slightly, the equivalent of a frown. "You dare suggest," Bright Crystal pulsed, "that your primitive species, barely able to reach your own moon a century ago, has surpassed our understanding of dimensional physics?" "We don't suggest," Walker replied. "We know. The Mobius Dawn is already built." This announcement caused a stir. The name meant nothing to them, but the implications were clear. Earth hadn't just theorized. They had constructed something. "Impossible," shouted someone from the back. "Their technology level is too low." "Sometimes," Walker said, his voice carrying clearly through the chaos, "being primitive has advantages. We didn't have thousands of years of established theories telling us what was impossible. We looked at the problem with fresh eyes." The Luminar Council member floated down to hover directly in front of Walker. Their light was now harsh, almost blinding. "If you have truly built such a vessel," they said, their tone dripping with doubt, "then surely you would be willing to demonstrate it." Walker's smile widened slightly. "That's why I'm here. Not to ask permission, but to inform you that the test flight is already scheduled." The chamber erupted again, this time in protests and demands. The luminars flickered rapidly, their light patterns showing clear alarm. They had not expected this primitive human to stand so confidently before them. "This is beyond reckless," Bright Crystal declared. "You cannot." Walker interrupted softly. "There's that word again. The flight will proceed. We're simply extending the courtesy of letting you know beforehand." As Walker turned to leave the chamber, the angry voices and flashing lights followed him. But he didn't hurry, didn't show any sign of fear or doubt. Because back on Earth, in the frozen wastes of Antarctica, the Mobius Dawn was already powering up its engines. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn that humanity had not just caught up to their level of technology. They had leaped far beyond it. The mockery would stop. The laughter would die. And a new age of human advancement would begin, whether the Galactic Council approved or not. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, where the howling winds couldn't reach, the largest underground facility on Earth hummed with energy. The quantum research facility stretched for miles under the frozen continent, its vast chambers filled with equipment that would make even the Luminars pause in wonder. Dr. Walker stood before the main control panel, his breath making small clouds in the cold air. Next to him, Dr. Ann Thompson adjusted complex readings on her display, her fingers moving quickly across the holographic controls. "Power levels are holding steady," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "The seventh dimensional matrix is forming exactly as we predicted." Before them, through the reinforced observation window, stood the Mobius Dawn. The ship looked nothing like the sleek vessels of the Galactic Council. Instead, it resembled a twisted figure eight, its hull made of a dark material that seemed to bend light around it. Small arcs of energy, colored in impossible shades, danced across its surface. "They think we're playing with toys," Walker said quietly, watching the energy patterns. "They've been stuck thinking in straight lines for so long, they can't see the curves anymore." Anne nodded, not looking up from her readings. "The Luminars got lazy. They found their fifth-dimensional shortcuts and stopped looking further. But you can't just skip the sixth dimension to reach the seventh." "No," Walker agreed, a small smile forming. "You have to go through it. That's what they never understood. The sixth dimension isn't a barrier. It's a gateway." On the main screen, complex equations scrolled past, each one confirming what they had discovered years ago. The sixth dimension wasn't meant for travel. It was meant for transformation. By passing through it, matter could be prepared for true seventh-dimensional existence. "Final power check," Anne announced. "All systems are green. The dimensional anchor is holding steady." Walker pressed his hand against the cold glass, studying their creation. 10 years of work, of failures, of being laughed at by their own scientific community before the alien ones even got involved. But they had done it. "Begin the particle test," he ordered. Anne typed in the commands. Inside the ship's main chamber, a small sphere of light appeared. It was their test subject, a single atom of hydrogen suspended in a quantum field. If their theories were right, it would be the first piece of matter to exist in 7 dimensions at once. Initiating sixth-dimensional phase, Anne said. The sphere began to change. It didn't move, exactly. Instead, it seemed to expand inward, becoming more complex while staying exactly the same size. The sensors surrounding it began reporting impossible readings. "It's working," Walker whispered. "The atom is accepting the sixth-dimensional state." Warning alarms began to sound, but they ignored them. The alarms were based on normal physics, and what they were doing now was far beyond normal. Seventh-dimensional transition in 3, 2, 1. The sphere flickered. For a brief moment, it seemed to exist everywhere in the chamber at once. Then it stabilized, becoming something that human eyes couldn't quite understand. An object that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. "We did it," Anne breathed, her hands shaking slightly as she checked the readings. "The atom is stable. It's maintaining 7th-dimensional existence." Walker quickly moved to another console, pulling up more detailed scans. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a particular reading. "It's not just existing in 7 dimensions. It's perfectly stable in all of them. The Luminars can only maintain 5th-dimensional stability for short periods. We've achieved permanent stability across all 7. And if it works for one atom," Anne started. "It will work for the whole ship," Walker finished. "The math is solid. We can scale this up." They looked at each other, years of shared work and dedication reflected in their eyes. Outside their facility, the galaxy might be laughing at humanity's presumption, but down here, in the cold and quiet beneath the ice, they had just changed everything. "Should we tell them?" Anne asked, meaning the Galactic Council. Walker shook his head, already beginning the shutdown sequence for the test. "Let them laugh for now," he said. "In 3 days, when we launch the Mobius Dawn with a full crew, they'll understand exactly what humanity has achieved." The test atom continued to exist in its impossible state, proof that humanity had not just matched alien technology, they had revolutionized it. Soon, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the smallest species could make the biggest breakthroughs. Captain Robert Stone stood on the bridge of the Mobius Dawn, his hands resting lightly on the control panel. The twisted figure-8 shape of the ship's interior made the bridge look like something from a dream, with walls that seemed to curve in impossible ways. "All systems check complete," reported his first officer, Tom Reed, from the science station. "Seventh dimensional drive is powered up and stable." Stone looked at each member of his carefully chosen crew. They were just 6 people, but they had trained for this moment for 2 years. Each of them had gone through extensive mental conditioning to prepare for what they were about to experience. "Dr. Walker," Stone called through the comm system, "we're ready to begin." In the control room beneath the Antarctic ice, Walker's voice came through clearly. "Remember, Captain, once you activate the drive, you'll experience reality in ways your mind isn't designed for. Trust your training. Trust the ship." Stone nodded, even though Walker couldn't see him. "Understood." Beginning launch sequence. The Mobius Dawn hummed to life. Unlike traditional spacecraft, it didn't need to break through the atmosphere. The 7th dimensional drive would simply shift them through normal space. "Drive at 20%, called out Lisa Green, the engineer. 6th dimensional phase beginning." The crew felt it immediately. The world seemed to stretch around them, as if reality itself was being pulled like taffy. Colors appeared that had no names, and for a moment, each crew member could see themselves from angles that shouldn't exist. 30%. Lisa continued, her voice steady despite the strange sensations. "Entering 7th dimensional space in 5, 4. Stone gripped his console tighter. This was the moment of truth. Humans were about to travel in ways that even the mighty Luminars had never achieved. 3, 2, 1. The universe changed. Suddenly, the crew wasn't just seeing their surroundings. They were experiencing reality from every possible angle simultaneously. Stone could see the front of the ship and its rear at the same time. He could perceive every crew member from all angles, including impossible ones that seemed to look through dimensions themselves. "Status report," he managed to say, though his voice seemed to echo through multiple versions of reality. "It's incredible," Tom breathed. "Captain, we're not just traveling through space. We're existing in multiple dimensional states at once. The sensors are picking up our presence in at least 7 different dimensional planes simultaneously." Through the ship's viewing ports, they could see space in ways no human ever had before. Stars weren't just points of light. They were complex, multi-dimensional objects that existed across multiple planes of reality. The crew could see their past, present, and numerous possible futures all at once. "Testing maneuverability," Stone announced, placing his hands on the control sphere. The ship responded instantly, moving not just through space, but through dimensions themselves. They passed through solid matter as if it wasn't there, existing partially in normal space and partially in higher dimensions. Lisa's voice came from engineering, filled with excitement. "The power readings are off the charts. We're not just stable, we're actually drawing energy from the dimensional boundaries themselves. The ship is becoming more efficient the longer we operate in 7D space." Suddenly, their sensors picked up something new. In the distance, they could see the magnificent ships of the Luminar fleet, patrolling their sector of space. But from their 7-dimensional perspective, the Luminar's supposedly advanced vessels looked simple and limited. "They can see us," Tom reported, checking his instruments. "But they can't understand what they're seeing. Their 5th-dimensional sensors can only pick up fragments of our presence." Stone allowed himself a small smile. "Let's give them something to really worry about," he said. "Lisa, take us to full power. Let's show them what humanity's first 7th-dimensional vessel can really do." The Mobius Dawn surged forward, its unique design allowing it to slip between dimensions like water flowing through cracks. They passed right through a Luminar patrol ship, existing in a dimension the aliens couldn't even perceive. In the control room back on Earth, Dr. Walker and Dr. Thompson watched their instruments with pride. The test flight wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary. Humanity hadn't just reached the stars, they had transcended the very way reality worked. The age of seven-dimensional travel had begun, and humanity was leading the way. The Luminar flagship appeared above Earth like a crystal shard catching sunlight. It wasn't alone. Dozens of their vessels emerged from fifth-dimensional space, their hulls gleaming with power that had once seemed unstoppable. Now they hung in orbit, a show of force meant to intimidate. Inside the Antarctic Facilities Command Center, alarms blared. Dr. Walker stared at the main screen, watching as more Luminar ships appeared. "They're earlier than we expected," Dr. Thompson said, her fingers flying over the control panel. "The test flight must have scared them more than we thought." The main communication screen flared to life. The image of First Speaker Bright Crystal filled it, their crystalline form pulsing with angry colors. "This is your only warning," the Luminar's translated voice boomed. "Your reckless experiments end now. You cannot comprehend the forces you are playing with." Walker stepped forward, his face calm despite the threat. "We comprehend them well enough to achieve what you couldn't in 10,000 years." The Luminar's light patterns turned harsh, almost painful to look at. "You will shut down the Mobius Dawn and surrender all research data. This is not a request. We have weapons capable of reducing your entire facility to atoms." In orbit, the Luminar ships began to move into attack formation. Their weapons, powered by fifth-dimensional energy, could indeed destroy most of Earth's surface. Until today, such threats would have worked perfectly. But today was different. "Captain Stone," Walker called through the comm system. "Are you seeing this?" A captain's voice came back clear and strong from the Mobius Dawn, which hovered in seven-dimensional space just outside the solar system. "We see them, Doctor. 18 capital ships, all armed with fifth-dimensional weapons. They're trying to look impressive." "Trying." Bright Crystal's form flickered with rage. "We are the most powerful civilization in the known galaxy. Your primitive species can see right through your ship's hulls." Stone interrupted. "From our position in seven-dimensional space, your vessels look like paper models. Would you like us to demonstrate?" The threat in Stone's voice was clear. The Mobius Dawn, operating in 7 dimensions, could literally pass through the Luminar ships as if they weren't there. Their mighty weapons and shields only worked in 5 dimensions. They would be useless against a 7-dimensional vessel. "You wouldn't dare," Bright Crystal pulsed. "The political consequences would be severe," Walker finished. "For you, attacking Earth without provocation, that wouldn't look good to the rest of the Galactic Council, would it?" On the screen, they could see the Luminar ships adjusting their positions. They were trying to track the Mobius Dawn, but their sensors could only detect fragments of its presence across dimensions. "We cannot allow this technology to exist," Bright Crystal insisted, but their voice held less certainty now. "The risks. The risks of letting one species dominate galactic technology are far greater," Walker said firmly. "Humanity didn't develop this to start a war. We did it to prove that progress doesn't stop just because you say it should." Captain Stone's voice came through again. "Doctor, they're charging weapons. Should we show them what we can really do?" Walker looked at Dr. Thompson, who nodded. "Give them a demonstration, Captain. Something small, but convincing." The Mobius Dawn suddenly appeared in the middle of the Luminar fleet, passing through their ships as if they were holograms. The mighty vessel's shields and weapons had no effect. They couldn't even detect the human ship properly, let alone stop it. "Impossible," Bright Crystal whispered, their form dimming with shock. "No," Walker corrected, "not impossible. Just beyond your understanding. Now, shall we discuss this like civilized beings, or do you need another demonstration?" The Luminar ships began powering down their weapons. On the screen, Bright Crystal's form had lost its harsh edge, shifting to colors that indicated uncertainty and perhaps a touch of fear. "The galaxy is changing," Walker said more gently. "You can either change with it or watch as humanity leads the way into a new age of exploration and discovery. In orbit, the mighty Luminar fleet hung motionless, their previous show of force now looking hollow and outdated. The age of five-dimensional dominance was over, and everyone knew it. The crisis wasn't over, but the first battle had been won without firing a shot. Humanity had proven its point not through violence, but through pure technological superiority. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 1,000 worlds watched in stunned silence as Captain Stone's hologram stood before them, his image occasionally splitting into 7 synchronized versions of himself, each existing in a different dimension. "What you're seeing," Stone explained calmly, "is not a trick or illusion. I am simultaneously present in all 7 dimensions, speaking to you from the bridge of the Mobius Dawn." The Luminar representatives flickered with agitation. First speaker Bright Crystal moved forward, their crystalline form pulsing rapidly. "This is a violation of natural law. Matter cannot exist stably across multiple dimensions." Dr. Walker stepped forward to join Stone's hologram. "Natural law?" he asked. "Or just the limits of your understanding? Captain, please demonstrate." The chamber erupted in gasps and cries of alarm as the Mobius Dawn suddenly appeared inside the council chamber itself. The massive ship somehow fit perfectly in the space, its twisted figure-8 form defying normal physics as it existed partially in each dimension. "Impossible," someone shouted. "The chamber's shields are 5-dimensional, Stone finished. "They might as well be made of paper to us now. But watch this." The ship began to change. Its hull seemed to ripple, and suddenly every being in the chamber could perceive all 7 dimensions at once. The Luminar's light patterns became erratic with shock as they saw, for the first time, what reality truly looked like beyond their limited 5-dimensional understanding. "The Mobius Dawn doesn't just travel through dimensions," Walker explained. "It can grant dimensional awareness to others. We can help you see what we see." An elder Luminar floated forward, their ancient crystalline form showing colors of deep thought. "In all our history," they pulsed slowly, "no species has achieved this level of dimensional manipulation." How did you do it?" Walker smiled. "We looked at the problem differently. You tried to force your way through dimensions. We learned to work with them instead." On cue, the ship's hull became transparent, revealing its inner workings. The assembled aliens could see the complex patterns of energy flowing through it, the way it wove reality itself into new forms. "The 7th dimension isn't just another layer of space," Stone continued. "It's a fundamental aspect of reality that connects all other dimensions. By understanding this, we didn't need to break through dimensional barriers. We simply had to learn to exist within all of them simultaneously." The ship's engines pulsed, sending waves of 7-dimensional energy through the chamber. Every being present felt their consciousness expand, briefly touching levels of reality they had never known existed. "This is just the beginning," Walker said softly. "Imagine ships that could travel anywhere instantly, not by breaking physics, but by understanding it completely. Imagine being able to see every possibility, every outcome, every path forward." The Luminar Elder's colors shifted to show deep amazement. "You've done more than build a new type of ship," they pulsed. "You've changed the fundamental way we understand reality itself." Stone nodded. "And we did it not through force or violence, but through understanding and innovation. The question now is, what will you do with this knowledge?" The chamber fell silent again as the implication sank in. Humanity hadn't just caught up to the galaxy's most advanced species, they had leaped far beyond them. The balance of power had shifted completely. "The Mobius Dawn is only our first step," Walker continued. "We're already drawing up plans for ships that can access even higher dimensions. But we're not interested in dominance. We want to explore, to understand, to grow." The ship's presence in the chamber began to fade, returning to its normal space, while leaving behind a lingering sense of wonder and possibility in every being present. "The galaxy stands at a crossroads," Stone's hologram announced. You can either fear this new technology or embrace it and help us explore its potential. The choice is yours. As the human representatives finished their demonstration, not a single being in the chamber was laughing anymore. Instead, they were beginning to understand that humanity hadn't just changed the rules of space travel, they had rewritten the very nature of reality itself. The tension in Earth's orbit could have been cut with a knife. Despite the peaceful overtures in the Galactic Council chamber, a group of hardline Luminar warships had taken up aggressive positions around the planet. Their commanders refused to accept humanity's sudden leap in technology. Final warning. The Luminar battle commander's message boomed across all frequencies. Power down your dimensional drives or face the consequences. In the Antarctic Control Center, Dr. Walker watched the situation unfold with calm determination. Captain Stone, he called through the comm system. I believe it's time for the Walker maneuver. Understood, Doctor. Stone replied from the Mobius Dawn's bridge. Beginning sequence now. The Mobius Dawn appeared in normal space, its twisted form now visible to the Luminar fleet. The ship looked small compared to the massive crystalline warships, but size had ceased to matter in seven-dimensional warfare. Target locked, Tom Reed reported from his station. The Luminars are powering up their main weapons. Their shields are at maximum strength. Stone nodded. Start the demonstration. Let's show them why five-dimensional defenses mean nothing now. The Mobius Dawn began to change. Its hull shifted through colors the human eyes couldn't process as it phased between dimensions. The ship split into 7 identical versions of itself, each existing in a different dimensional plane, but all perfectly synchronized. Impossible. The Luminar commander transmitted. Our sensors show you existing in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Stone finished for him. Would you like to see what that means in combat? Without waiting for a response, the Mobius Dawn executed the Walker maneuver. The ship passed through the Luminar fleet's formation, its 7 forms moving in perfect harmony. As it moved, it passed straight through the supposedly impenetrable shields of the alien vessels. How? The Luminar commander demanded, their transmission showing clear panic. Our shields are the strongest in the galaxy. Your shields only work in 5 dimensions, Walker explained, his voice calm. We exist in 7. To us, your defenses might as well not exist at all. To prove his point, the Mobius Dawn positioned itself half in and half out of the Luminar flagship, existing partially inside the alien vessel's hull without damaging either ship. The effect was like seeing a ghost pass through a solid wall, except this ghost operated on principles beyond normal physics. We could destroy your entire fleet right now, Stone transmitted. We could phase into your engine cores, disable your weapons, or simply push you into a dimension where your ships can't function. But that's not why we developed this technology. The Mobius Dawn withdrew from the Luminar ship, its 7 forms merging back into one. The effect was like watching water droplets flow together, if the water existed in 7 different realities at once. The Walker maneuver isn't a weapon, Dr. Thompson added, joining the transmission. It's proof that the old ways of thinking about space, time, and warfare are obsolete. We can't fight over dimensional technology anymore. We have to work together to understand it. On their sensors, they could see the Luminar ship's weapons powering down. The alien commanders had finally understood. Their most advanced technology, the pride of their civilization, had just been rendered completely obsolete by human innovation. Your shields can't stop us, Walker said gently. Your weapons can't harm us. Your sensors can barely detect us. But we're not here to fight. We're here to explore, to learn, and to share what we've learned. The Mobius Dawn performed one final maneuver, creating a 7-dimensional pattern in space that looked like a dance of light and reality. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a demonstration of power that doubled as a work of art. The galaxy is changing, Stone transmitted to all ships. The question isn't whether you can stop us, you can't. The question is, will you join us in exploring these new frontiers? One by one, the Luminar ships began to retreat, their mighty weapons and shields now revealed as relics of an outdated age. They had come to demonstrate their power, but had instead witnessed the dawn of a new era in galactic history. The Walker maneuver had done more than prove humanity's technological superiority. It had shown the galaxy that the future belonged to those who dared to think beyond the limits of the possible. 1 month after the Walker maneuver demonstration, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different. The crystalline walls still reached toward infinity, but now they were filled with holograms showing 7-dimensional equations and designs. Where once there had been mockery of humanity, now there was eager attention. Dr. Walker stood at the central platform, but this time he wasn't alone. Representatives from 50 alien species sat close by, all of them part of the new Joint Dimensional Research Initiative. Even the Luminars had joined, their crystalline forms glowing with colors of curiosity rather than superiority. The principles are actually quite simple, Walker explained, gesturing to a hologram of the Mobius dawn. We had to stop thinking of dimensions as barriers to break through. They're more like layers of a fabric, all connected, all part of the same whole. In orbit above them, the first joint human-alien crew was preparing to board a new 7-dimensional vessel. Captain Stone had been chosen to train these alien pilots, teaching them to perceive reality in entirely new ways. Your species has achieved more in months than we managed in millennia. The Luminar Elder pulsed softly. Their light patterns showed humility, something no human had ever seen from their kind before. We were so certain we knew everything about dimensional physics. That was your first mistake, Dr. Thompson replied from her seat beside Walker. The moment you think you know everything is the moment you stop learning. The hologram shifted to show the new designs they were working on together. Ships that could safely carry beings of any species through all 7 dimensions. Medical equipment that could heal by accessing multiple dimensional states of a patient's body. Power systems that drew energy from the dimensional boundaries themselves. But the technology isn't the most important breakthrough, Walker continued, looking around the chamber. The real achievement is this: all of us, working together, sharing knowledge without fear or pride getting in the way. The chamber hummed with agreement. Species that had once competed fiercely were now collaborating, each bringing their unique perspectives to the challenge of understanding higher dimensions. The old hierarchy is gone, Walker announced. The Galactic Council is no longer about who has the most advanced technology or the strongest weapons. It's about who can contribute the most to our shared understanding. Through the chamber's windows, they could see the Mobius dawn passing by, its twisted form now a symbol of change throughout the galaxy. But it was no longer alone. Other ships of similar design were beginning to appear, each one a collaboration between humanity and their new allies. We offer this technology freely, Walker said, but with one condition. Knowledge of the 7th dimension must never be used for warfare or dominance. The power to manipulate reality itself comes with great responsibility. The assembled representatives nodded solemnly. They had all seen what 7-dimensional technology could do. The thought of it being used for war was terrifying, but the potential for peaceful exploration was limitless. Our next expedition will reach beyond the galaxy's edge, Walker continued, bringing up new star charts. With 7-dimensional travel, we can explore regions of space that were once impossible to reach. Who will join us? Hands, tentacles, light patterns, and various alien appendages rose throughout the chamber. The spirit of exploration had replaced the old desires for dominance and control. A year ago, you laughed at us, Walker reminded them gently. You called us primitive, said we couldn't possibly understand higher dimensional physics. Today, we stand together as equals, ready to explore wonders none of us can fully imagine. The Luminar Elder floated forward, their form glowing with acceptance. We were wrong about humanity, they pulsed. You didn't just master 7 dimensions. You taught us all how to see beyond our own limitations. As the session ended, Walker looked out at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, the first joint expedition was preparing to travel further than any being had gone before. They would face unknown challenges and make incredible discoveries, but they would do it together. The age of 7 dimensions had begun, and with it, a new era of galactic cooperation. Humanity had done more than prove their worth. They had shown the galaxy a better way forward. The laughter had indeed stopped, replaced by something far more valuable: respect, collaboration, and hope for a future that now seemed limitless.